Did you know that right now, astronomers estimate there are over 100 million billion star systems in our galaxy alone? So here's a question. What if one of them is already here? What if I told you something that traveled billions of miles through space, suddenly locked a signal onto Earth, and then vanished from NASA's radar without a trace? Stick around, because what happens next will blow your mind. In the cold, silent hours before dawn, deep in the California desert, NASA's Deep Space Network captured something no one had ever heard before. A signal, crisp and deliberate, pulsing from the darkness between the stars. It wasn't static, it wasn't noise, it was structure, a perfectly repeating rhythm echoing across the void, aimed straight at us. This isn't just any antenna farm. The Deep Space Network is our planet's ear, a series of massive, ultra-sensitive dishes listening for the faintest whispers from our own deep space probes, like Voyager. For it to pick up something new, something structured and unknown, that's the moment the world changes. If you're captivated by the mystery of 3I Atlas and want to see more mind-bending cosmic stories, smash that like button and let the universe know you are watching. Every click helps keep the search for the unknown alive. This transmission came from the interstellar traveler known as 3I Atlas, an object already infamous for defying every law of celestial mechanics. The pulse lasted exactly 11 seconds, each cycle repeating with absolute precision every 47 minutes, as if counting down to something. Inside mission control, the air turned electric. Engineers checked and rechecked their instruments. No glitches, no interference. What they were hearing was real. And stranger still, the signal wasn't fading. It was growing stronger, tripling in intensity over just 5 hours, as though something inside that hollow visitor was awakening, charging up, preparing for what came next. So the question is, was this a greeting, a warning, or the beginning of something we can't yet understand? Stay with me, because what happens next will make you question everything we thought we knew about the universe. When NASA's Deep Space Network first locked onto the pulse from 3I Atlas, many believed it had to be a glitch, maybe background interference, or a stray echo from a distant satellite. But once the signal was analyzed, everything changed. The transmission was coming through at 1.42 gigahertz, the exact frequency of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. Astronomers call it the water hole, a quiet zone in the cosmic spectrum, where intelligent civilizations would most likely send a message. Why? Because hydrogen is universal. It's the simplest, most fundamental atom. Every single species that develops the technology to study the stars would recognize its fingerprint. It's the cosmic hello, a frequency so obvious it's like broadcasting on the main default channel of the universe. Whoever sent this signal wanted it to be understood, right? But this wasn't just a tone, it was a message. Within a message, inside each 11-second pulse, were hidden layers of complexity, nested modulations, repeating sub-patterns, and mathematical rhythms that hinted at encoded data. Imagine Morse code, but billions of times more advanced, unfolding across multiple timelines, weaving structure into silence. When we say nested modulations, we're talking about information hidden inside other information. It's like opening an email that contains a zip file, which contains a document, which itself has a hyperlink to an entire database. It demonstrates a level of data compression and intelligence that is simply staggering. This wasn't a beep, it was a library. Go! NASA brought in cryptographers, radio engineers, and artificial intelligence experts to decode it. After countless simulations and cross-checks, one conclusion sent a chill through every lab on Earth. The probability that this signal was artificial exceeded 99%. So if it wasn't random and it wasn't natural, then someone or something out there was deliberately trying to communicate, stay tuned, because what the signal did next turned a cosmic mystery into humanity's greatest fear. 3 days after that first detection, just as scientists began mapping the repeating patterns, something unimaginable happened. The signal changed. It didn't stop. It evolved. What was once a broad cosmic broadcast suddenly collapsed into a narrow focused beam, aimed, measured, intentional. For 8 full minutes, every sensor from Goldstone to Arecibo confirmed the same impossible truth. 3I Atlas wasn't just transmitting, it was targeting. The beam was locked directly on Earth. Now, to understand the physics here, natural radio emissions scatter in every direction, like ripples on water. They get weaker and weaker with distance, but this was precision. This was a laser pointer. Someone or something had the power to focus electromagnetic energy across billions of miles with surgical accuracy. That is a technology humanity has barely mastered on our own planet, let alone from a moving object in space. Yet this object had traveled here from beyond the stars. Engineers run the numbers again and again. The orientation of 3I Atlas, the vector of the beam, and Earth's position in space all matched perfectly. This wasn't coincidence, it was intent. And here's what terrified NASA the most: the timing. The shift happened just 9 days before the object was set to pass behind the sun, completely hidden from observation. Almost as if it was saying, "Watch carefully before I disappear." Was it a greeting, a warning, or a countdown? The deeper NASA looked, the more the universe seemed to look back. By dawn on October 21st, the mood inside NASA had shifted from curiosity to quiet panic. The signal was real, it was directional, and it was getting stronger. But instead of announcing the discovery to the world, something strange happened. Everything went silent. No press release, no statement, no leaks. Every live feed froze across NASA control rooms. Screens that once displayed telemetry now showed a single word: restricted. And soon whispers began to spread about a secret contingency plan, something called the Discovery Protocol. This classified framework was designed years ago after the Oumuamua incident, a step-by-step procedure for what to do if we ever detect evidence of extraterrestrial technology. Step 1, verify the data. Step 2, alert military and government contacts. Step 3, a 72-hour blackout before any public disclosure. Now, officially, it's to prevent misinformation. Unofficially, it's to buy time, But here's where the fear began to spread. Those 72 hours passed, then 5 days, and still no word from NASA, the European Space Agency, or even China's observatories. The entire scientific community went dark all at once, right? Then one man broke the silence: astrophysicist Avi Loeb, director of the Galileo project. And he posted a single statement that went viral among insiders: "We are witnessing institutional paralysis in the face of the extraordinary." This is not how science behaves. This is how fear behaves. No. So what could possibly terrify every major space agency into silence? Stay with me, because in the next part, the story takes a turn from secrecy to something far more unsettling. As the silence deepened and the world's observatories stayed dark, one theoretical physicist decided to speak up, not to calm the fear, but to confront it. He proposed 3 possible explanations for what 3I Atlas might be doing, and each one was more disturbing than the last. The first he called the Benin hypothesis. The idea that 3I Atlas could be nothing more than an ancient probe, a long-forgotten machine launched by a civilization that vanished ages ago. Its signal might simply be a status beacon, a quiet announcement whispering across time. I see you, I acknowledge your presence. If that were true, we are not in danger. We're just another entry in its cosmic logbook, right? The second theory was the warning hypothesis. According to this, the signal's timing right before the object's closest approach to the sun wasn't random. The physicists suggested the hollow body of 3I Atlas might contain smaller probes. I also, while it passes behind the solar glare, the one window where no telescope on Earth can see it. The message then could be a simple but chilling alert. Do not interfere, no. But the third scenario silenced the room, the test hypothesis. This entire sequence was a stress test for humanity, a way to measure how we react under cosmic pressure, to see if we cooperate or collapse. To observe our fear was secrecy or choices. Think about it. Are we a species that shares information openly, or do we hoard it in fear? Do we unite as a planet, or do our national borders define our response? This hypothesis suggests the visitors are not interested in our technology. They are interested in our psychology. Because right now, as the physicists warn, humanity's reaction hasn't been courage. It's been silence and panic. So what if we're not the observers at all, but the experiment? The next clue suggests 3I Atlas might not just be signaling us. It could already be watching us. As more data poured in, every new piece only deepened the mystery. The deeper scientists looked into 3I Atlas, the stranger it became, until one truth could no longer be ignored. This thing wasn't behaving like any comet or asteroid ever recorded, right? It was hollow. Its internal density didn't match solid rock. As it entered the solar system, it slowed down, something no natural object could ever do without propulsion. This is a critical point that defies our understanding of gravity. An object falling toward the sun should speed up, pulled in by the sun's immense gravity. To slow down means something is pushing back. It requires an engine, a solar sail, some form of non-gravitational propulsion. It's the equivalent of a rock rolling downhill and suddenly deciding to stop and reverse course. Its path aligned almost perfectly with the ecliptic plane within just a few degrees. A precision that would challenge even our most advanced spacecraft. No. And then came the visual anomalies during its flyby of Mars. Its timing was so exact that scientists calculated the odds of coincidence at less than 1 in 50,000. Spectral readings showed faint green emissions, chemical signatures unknown to any naturally occurring element. No. Then came the signal itself, coherent structure transmitted at the hydrogen frequency, the universal language of the cosmos. Combined, all of this shattered any illusion of chance. One anomaly could be dismissed, but all of them together painted a single unnerving picture. 3I Atlas wasn't a comet, it was a machine. Something engineered, something ancient, traveling across interstellar space with a purpose, right? And if that purpose involved us, then first contact wasn't coming someday in the future, it had already begun. Stay with me, because as 3I Atlas neared the sun, it began to do something that defied every law of physics. Something that made even NASA's best minds question reality itself. On October 24th, just hours before 3I Atlas was set to slip behind the sun, telescopes around the world locked onto its trajectory, everything seemed stable, same speed, same rotation, same pulsing signal. But then, without warning, it stopped. The transmission ceased mid-cycle, the signal cut out halfway through a pulse. NASA's emergency tracking systems ran simulations for orbital drift, solar scattering, even gravitational lensing, but there was no logical explanation. The data didn't show the object moving away, it showed it ceasing to exist, And then came something even stranger. For 47 minutes, the exact cycle of the original signal, every deep space network antenna across 3 continents detected a faint electromagnetic echo. It wasn't coming from the direction of the Sunday, it was coming from inside Earth's orbit, as if somehow the signal hadn't vanished at all. It had relocated. Some scientists speculated about light speed signal lag. Others whispered about dimensional interference. But one classified memo leaked online with just 5 words that sent the world into panic. Object possibly entered local space, right? So where did 3I Atlas go? Did it burn up behind the Sunday? Or did it move somewhere closer than anyone's willing to admit? 47 minutes after the disappearance of 3I Atlas, the silence was shattered. NASA's Deep Space Network received a sudden surge, a burst of electromagnetic noise so intense it overloaded multiple receivers. But when the data was filtered, it wasn't just noise. It was a message. Hidden inside the static were repeating patterns, identical to the original 3I Atlas pulse, but altered. The structure had changed, as if it had been modulated by something. Engineers quickly realized it wasn't coming from deep space anymore. The origin point was triangulated somewhere near Earth's orbit and moving, not around the Sunday, around us. The pattern circled the planet every 47 minutes, exactly matching the interval of the earlier signal. To put it simply, something was orbiting Earth, broadcasting the same message 3I Atlas had sent, but now there was more. In between the repeating pulses were short bursts of data, binary sequences that when decoded produced a grid of coordinates. The location, random points across Earth's oceans, deserts, and polar regions. No explanation, no recognizable meaning, just a growing list of sites that formed a pattern only visible from orbit. A spiral. This is where the mystery becomes terrestrial. A spiral. Is this a mathematical construct like a galactic fingerprint based on the Fibonacci sequence, or is it something more alarming? Some experts feared it was an activation map pointing to hidden locations, perhaps ley lines or energy deposits on our own planet. The signal was no longer just a hello, it was a map. NASA denied everything, calling it a transmission misread, but internal documents leaked the next morning showed otherwise. The echoes were real, and every time the signal looped around Earth, it grew stronger. It was as if something or someone was syncing with our planet. So, what if 3I Atlas never disappeared at all? What if it changed form? The next part, we uncovered the final transmission NASA tried to erase, the one that suggests we were never the ones observing. Just before dawn on October 25th, an encrypted file surfaced on a private server linked to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It was only 27 seconds long, labeled simply as Atlas Last Wave. Within hours, it was deleted, but not before a few astronomers saved a copy. No. When decrypted, the file revealed something no one expected. It wasn't random static. It was structured, layered, containing both audio and visual data hidden within the waveform itself. A form of hybrid encoding used in deep space communications. When decoded frame by frame, the image began to take shape, and the rotating spherical object, metallic, perfectly symmetrical, and at its center. And in the days following the disappearance of 3I Atlas, a quiet panic rippled through observatories across the globe. Dozens of independent astronomers began cross-checking historical data, and what they found turned this mystery from an isolated event into a pattern that spans human history. Archive sky surveys dating back more than half a century revealed faint repeating anomalies, objects with similar light curves, identical rotational periods, and the same strange hydrogen frequency pulses. Each appeared briefly near our sun and then vanished. The earliest trace, photographic plates from 1957, the same year humanity launched its first artificial satellite. And the intervals between each event always precise, always synchronized. Every 23 years, almost to the day, one of these interstellar visitors enters the system, transmits for a short window, and disappears. No. When scientists charted the object's entry vectors, a chilling realization emerged. All of them originated from the same direction in deep space. A fixed coordinate near the constellation Lyra. Mathematicians ran the numbers statistically. This couldn't be random. Someone or something has been monitoring us, not just now, but for decades, maybe centuries. You know, some researchers believe the purpose is benign, that we're being observed like a young civilization under cosmic quarantine. Others fear the opposite, that we're being cataloged, studied, until a decision is made. You know, and maybe 3I Atlas wasn't the first or the last. Maybe it was simply the next probe in an ongoing survey, one that records our technology, our behavior, our fear, and our silence. Because if the 23-year cycle holds true, then the next visitor will arrive sooner than we think. So the question remains, are we truly alone in the universe? Or are we already part of someone else's experiment? This entire story, this whole terrifying sequence of events, leaves us with one profound lesson. The greatest discoveries in human history will not be found in comfort. They will be found in the extraordinary, in the anomalies. Our instinct might be to fear what we don't understand, to classify it, to hide it, or to meet it with silence, just as the global agencies did. But as scientists, as explorers, as human beings, our true calling is to meet the unknown with curiosity, to share data openly, and to face the extraordinary, not with fear, as Avi Loeb said, but with the courage to ask the next question. Because silence, in the face of such a profound mystery, is the greatest failure of all. What do you think? Was 3I Atlas a test, a warning, or just an ancient machine passing by? Let me know your theory in the comments below. And if you want to keep exploring the biggest what-ifs in the cosmos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a transmission.